Dear students, in the previous session we have discussed about the circular wave knitting machines and their classification. So today we will discuss the classification of wave knitting machines according to the needle bed type we are using in the knitting machines. So we have web knitting machines classified into different ways. So one of the method is that is needle bed we are using in the web knitting machine. So you can observe here the number of needle beds in the machine may be one or two, and accordingly the machines are called either single bed or single jersey, or double bed is nothing but double jersey or double knit fabrics we can say. So single bed if we have in the knitting machine, single bed if we have single bed or single jersey machines we can call, and double beds if we have two beds, that is maybe like a cylinder or dial, so we can call it as double jersey web knitting machines or double knit web knitting machines. Now we will see that how these needle beds are going to be classified as per the needle bed we are using. So how these web knitting machines are classified as per the needle bed we have. So there are two ways, that is either in the form of flat form or in the manner of circle. So web knitting machines are basically classified into two categories. One is called as flat web knitting machine. Second one is called as circular web knitting machines. So these flat web knitting machines are again classified into single bed flat web knitting machines, and second one double bed, that is V bed flat web knitting machines. Now you can observe this image. We have here only one bed which is having a trikes, number of trikes in the bed. So generally this needle bed is one of the element in the web knitting machine. So this element is very major and important element where your needle is going to rise up and lower down within the trikes of the needle bed. So you can see here that two, the flat web knitting machine, the two single bed flat web knitting machines. So we have only one bed. In one bed we have number of trikes. So in these trikes, each and every trike we have going to handle one needle. For example, if we have 1000 number of trikes, 1000 number of needles can be incorporated in the needle bed. So this is just an example of a single bed web knitting machine, and you can see this picture where these are called as trikes and this is called as your needle, where this needle is going to be operated in the trikes of the needle bed. And when it comes to the second web knitting machine, that is second flat web knitting machine, that is double bed web knitting machine, that too V bed flat web knitting machine. So V bed flat web knitting machine is nothing but there is a use of two needle beds which are operated one opposite to each other. So These needle beds are arranged in such a manner that the angle between the two needles will be 90 degrees to 104 degrees. So the angle between the two flat weft knitting or two flat beds are 104 to 90, that is 90 to 104 degree angle in between the two beds. Now you can see these. Now you can see how this V-bed flat weft knitting machine is going to work, and you can see here we will see a small video of V-bed flat weft knitting machine. What are the elements and how it will be operated. Now you can see single flat bed weft knitting machine, how it will operate. A small video you will see how this flat weft knitting machine is going to be operated. Coming to the second weft knitting machine type, that is circular weft knitting machine. So the circular weft knitting machines are classified into two categories. One is called as single cylinder weft knitting machine and double cylinder or cylinder and dial weft knitting machines. So you can see here single cylinder nothing but where you can observe this image. This is a single cylinder weft knitting machine where one of the element in the weft knitting machine is cylinder. You can see this picture. This is called as a cylinder which is available in the single jersey weft knitting machine. So the cylinder diameter is going to be generally varies from the application wise, that is end use application. If we need more diameter of the fabric, we need to go for the more diameter of the needle bed. So vice versa, like if you want a smaller diameter of the fabric width or fabric diameter, we need to go for the smaller diameter of the needle bed. So this is called as the single jersey weft knitting machine. So we will look after a small video related to the single jersey weft knitting machine.
Let's start by taking a look at the big picture, the basic configuration of most knitting machines. Commonly used for single knits are circular knitting machines, which pull their yarn supply from creels located either above the machine or next to the machine. To make it easier for technicians to service the creels, it is more usual to find creels located at the side. In this position, less lint falls into knitting elements. Larger packages can be used, and more feeds can be placed on the machine. Whether the creel is at the side or top, the principles for circular knitting are the same. Fed from above the knitting elements, yarns move from the yarn supply, or creel, through guides to stop motion controls above the machine, then back down through tension controls and yarn feeding devices to the knitting elements. Quality products can be produced only when stop motion and yarn feeding functions are properly set. The intricate action of knitting, where needles form loops, occurs at the middle of the machine, between the take-up and the yarn feeding mechanism. A close-up shows you how, with circular weft knitting, needles knit one after the other in a sequence for each yarn. Notice how loops are formed horizontally by needles knitting around the cylinder, forming a tube. After yarn is knit on the knitting elements, The knitted fabric is passed over a spreader mechanism through take-up rolls and is wound into a roll. This elliptical spreader distributes the take-up tension uniformly and enables the fabric to conform to a flat.
Where in the double jersey web knitting machine, we can have cylinder and dial. So, cylinder is one element and dial is one element. So, in the cylinder trikes and the dial trikes, we have the needles, separate set of needles which are going to be incorporated in the cylinder trikes as well as the dial trikes. Now, the cylinder needles and dial needles will be going to operated by the help of cams. The cams will be, cylinder cams are different and the dial cams will be different. So, opposite to the each other, these cylinder and dial needles will be arranged so that we can form double jersey fabrics. Some of the applications of these double jersey fabrics are like interlocks, ribs. So in the ribs also we have several categories. For example, if we have in the double jersey web knitting machines, if we have multi-track system, we can go for the more, or we can produce more number of structures by using the double jersey web knitting machines. So now we will see here this image. Clearly you can observe particularly where the cams are fixed in the circular fashion around the cylinder. By using these cams, we can rise up the needles and lower down the needles. That means the sequentially these needles will be operated throughout the cylinder circumference. We will look after a small video of double jersey web knitted fabrics, that too cylinder and dial case. We will see in the here a small video.
A second type of gating, where needles are placed opposite each other, is interlock gating. This results in different performance. In interlock gating, cylinder and dial needles are spaced so they're directly opposed. To prevent needles from hitting each other during the knitting cycle, opposing needles are not selected at the same time. When needle 1 in the cylinder is knitting, the corresponding needle 1 in the dial must rest. This is achieved by the alternating needles in the dial and the cylinder never being activated at the same time. This requires 2 cam tracks for both needle beds. Therefore, the location of the butts on the needle shank must be in 2 positions. Most commonly used are butts in short and long configurations, as seen in this illustration. Needles with long and short butts are alternately arranged in the cylinder and also in the dial. During each feed or course of yarn, only half the needles are used. On course 1, only needles with long butt positions knit, those placed in odd positions of the cylinder and even positions of the dial. On the second course of yarn or feed, the short butt position needles knit, in even positions of the cylinder and in odd positions of the dial. 2 feeds are required to complete a full visual course of interlock knit, whereas in 1x1 rib knitting, only 1 feed is required to make a visible course. Look at the resulting structure of an interlock fabric. Follow 1 course across different wales, and you will see a complex knit. Remember that 2 feeds are required for 1 course of knit. This first colored yarn knits on odd dial and even cylinder needles. The second colored yarn knits on odd cylinder and even dial needles. Because loops interlock and alternate from the front to the back, the structure of interlock fabric is much more rigid and stable than that of a rib. At closer inspection, you can see that interlock is the meshing or interlocking of 2 1x1 rib courses. This prevents adjacent wales from having mobility. Different double knit constructions can be made on rib and interlock gated machines. Needle selection by mechanical and/or electronic systems, along with yarn selection, determines the design effect. A variation of an interlock knit can be used to produce a structure that is tight and stable, where 1 course of fabric is attached and interlocked while the next is not. Ponte di Roma used for women's dresses and suits, is an example of this. This fabric has the same appearance on both sides. Here's the notation for this type of fabric. During the first two feeds, the machine knits interlock. With the third feed, the machine knits jersey on only the cylinder needles. At feed 4, jersey is knit on only the dial needles. It takes 4 yarn feeds to make 2 visual courses. Although it is smooth, Ponte di Roma has a slight horizontal rib appearance and is thicker and more stable than interlock.
And now we have a third category, that too in the circular web knitting machines. These circular web knitting machines, that third category is double cylinder category. So there are 2 cylinders which are arranged in the one inside the other, so that we can make double jersey fabrics. So by this class you can know about what are the different types of web knitting machines which are classified as per the bed or as per the needle bed we are using. So in a brief, this session we have discussed flat knitting machines and the circular web knitting machines. So web knitting machines, under web knitting machines we have a category, that is flat web knitting machines, and the second one is circular web knitting machines. Under flat web knitting machines we have single bed web knitting machines and double bed, that is V bed flat web knitting machines. And in the second category, that is circular web knitting machines, we have single bed circular web knitting machines and double needle beds, that is called as dial and cylinder, or cylinder and dial web knitting machine. And third category is double cylinder web knitting machines. So this is the summary of this session. We will see that in the next class how and what are the different types of needle beds or the circular web knitting machines are available with their different diameters and different applications of the web knitting machines. So till then, thanks for listening. Thank you.